Well, Iowa State falls again. College game day is going to Lubbock, Texas, and if you're an Iowa State fan, it's a good time for basketball to start. This is the Big 12 Deep Dive. Welcome back here to the Big 12 Deep Dive. I'm not having my microphone stand because it was not really working the greatest, so if you're wondering why I haven't posted in 2 weeks, I lack of consistency right now, trying to get this thing started up. So hopefully now that we're back, I'm also trying to figure out a new spot to do this because I know a lot of the lighting for YouTube is not necessarily ideal. This is also not the ideal room to do a podcast. Most people that only really know me in person would know this, but this room is actually not heated with the rest of my house. So it is a little tricky. It's freezing out here right now, actually. So, that's really nice. But yeah, we got some things to talk about with Iowa State football. And I mean, the first one, like I said, I've been gone 2 weeks, so we've lost 2 games since I have not made a video. We lost obviously back-to-back games against Cincinnati, but now we lost 4 in a row, one to BYU, one to Arizona State. I was at the BYU game. That was a very good game to go to. Well, I should say fun game to go to. Good in the first half, struggled in the second half. Not going to talk about that, though. First thing I want to get out of the way, though, with Iowa State, because there's obviously been lots of coaching changes over the last couple of weeks, or coaches being fired, I should rather say. And Matt Campbell's name has been thrown out a few times I've seen on Twitter. But, you got guys like James Franklin from Penn State, who's obviously, that was like week 4 or 5, something like that. And then you got Billy Napier over at Florida who got fired, and then LSU's the most recent one with Brian Kelly. I'm going to be honest, I don't see Matt Campbell leaving, especially with the year that he's having. I mean, I will say this. I can see it if you look at Iowa State and Matt Campbell from an overall standpoint. I think there could be a conversation to be had. But also, if you're Matt Campbell, you got to be thinking, okay, if I'm having the year that I'm having right now at Iowa State, if I have a year like this at LSU, well, especially with what their AD just said, their new AD, yeah, you're probably not going to be there for very long if you have a year like you're having right now at Iowa State. Because, I mean, Brian Kelly just got fired for having a 5-3 year. So I don't see Matt Campbell going anywhere. I know there's been a ton of, ex-burner accounts, a little bit more specifically Iowa Hawkeye fans, burner accounts that are saying Matt Campbell's gone. And they're like, oh, it's very obvious because Matt Campbell's having a crap year at Iowa State. It's like, that's just not really how that works. So I don't think Matt Campbell's going anywhere. I really don't. We will get to some of the coaching stuff in just a little bit, though, because, I'm a new podcaster. I'm new to all of this, but I'm not going to be afraid to say things that I think need to be said. So I'm going to get to some of that stuff in a little bit. But anyways, like I said, Iowa State falls 24-19. First player I want to get out of the way is, I shouldn't say get out of the way, but first player I want to talk about is Benjamin Bramer. Obviously good to see that he is released from the hospital. Looked like he took a huge hit in that game, and that was horrible just watching him. And I was not at this game, but I mean, even just from watching on TV, you could hear how silent it was in Jack Trice. Like, it was just dead. Like, not a single sound was made. But it is good to see, at least right now, that Benjamin Bramer is doing better, and was released from the hospital, just to be cautious. They wanted to get him there. But yeah, glad to see that he's okay. The second thing that I'm going to say, and I'm going to piggyback off this in a second, but I really do have some serious questions about Rocco. I still think Rocco is a great quarterback, but I'm more so, again, this goes back to the health thing with Iowa State right now. Like, I'm more so wondering if Rocco's okay health-wise. Because we saw against the shot to the head against Cincinnati when we played them, that was, I think that ended up being targeting. It just seems like ever since then, there's been an issue with Rocco Becht. And I'm not I don't like saying this because I love Rocco Becht. I still think he's a solid quarterback. Yes, he's in a slump. But my thing, I will be completely honest. I would rather lose having Alex Mansky at quarterback rather than having Rocco in and us still losing and getting beaten maybe a little bit less than we would. But here's the other thing, too, that I'll say is Rocco is a junior. Alex Mansky is a freshman, a really good one. I believe he was a 4-star recruit out of high school. So I personally, I don't see a problem with it because it's like, well, on one side, like I said, like we're losing already. And here's how I view this. If Alex Mansky, if he starts playing a little bit more in these games, that's just going to, bring up his confidence when it comes to his time around to being the starting quarterback the whole year, if that's who that's going to be. I know that it's, you don't want to necessarily look down the line, but again, we're 5-4. So obviously Big 12 championship game hopes are kind of gone. They're just not really there anymore. So I don't know. That's just my personal take on it. Again, I personally would look into doing this until Rocco is, clear, because it just doesn't look like he's healthy. And I would rather lose with Alex Mansky being on our quarterback rather than losing with Rocco being our quarterback and getting worse is the other thing too. Like worse health wise, which I know technically if you want to be super critical and pinpointy of that, you can see that really about any quarterback because it's a long season. It really is. But no, that's just my personal thoughts there. Next thing I have is offensive play calling, and there's a lot of things from this year that you can take away from. Before I started this podcast, I had mentioned with Iowa State, very early in the year, I was like, our offensive play calling is definitely on the side of questionable, I think. I think Taylor Mauser is an okay offensive coordinator. I think we could be a lot better in certain positions. Especially, I feel like our play calling, once we get past the 50-yard line, is a lot of the times, like, very predictable. Like, oh, we're going to run it on first down. We're going to run it on second down. Okay, that didn't work. We're going to pass it because those two didn't work. Like, I just feel like we're way too predictable once we get past the 50-yard line. And sure, there's times where we try to pass it when we're past the 50-yard line on first down, second down. But I think for the most part, it's like we just try to do the same things. And it's just like, I don't like, in a conference like the Big 12, you cannot really do that. So I don't know. Our offensive play calling, like I said, I think it can get a lot better, and I hope it does over these next 3 games of regular season play. I still think our offensive play calling is going to be good enough to get us to a bowl game, because I've seen a bunch of other on X comments that are like, I don't even know if we're going to go to a bowl game anymore. I still think we will. I think we can still get Kansas and Oklahoma State. I think Kansas is going to be the hardest game on our schedule. Obviously, we still got at TCU left, but I think Kansas at home is going to be the hardest one. And I mean, Oklahoma State, by all means, that is on the road. TCU, obviously, I think is not going to be easy by any means, but I think that's a little bit better, easier game than Kansas will be. But also there, I mean, you look at TCU's offense going up against our defense, which is my next point. But I think, we match up a little bit better defensively to their offense. So that brings me to my next point, though. Defensively, I think we're fine on defense. Our corners with Trey Bell and Quentin Taylor, and then the new guys that are getting in, the freshmen, they do seem to get better every game. I know it's very cliche. Matt Campbell has said that a lot, but it does seem like they are getting better every game. I thought our defense played besides giving up the 88-yard touchdown, or whatever that was, I thought our defense actually played a really solid game. BYU, that was kind of a wacky game. some things did not go our offense's way or our special teams' way, so you kind of gave them the ball at the 35-yard line. Well, it's kind of, you're not going to do too successful if they're starting the ball 35 yards away from the end zone. They're more than likely going to come up with at least a field goal, and you can't hold them to a field goal every time. So, honestly, I feel like a lot of what I've seen online has been about our defense and Rocco Becht, which is fine, because obviously, people are going to say things about the defense and, other things. But I think, honestly, especially last game against Arizona State, I think our defense was probably our strongest point by far. Like, not even close. I also think it was huge getting the fumble and the interception at the second half, which brings me to my next point, which is back to the offensive calling that I should have mentioned just a second ago. But this is the one thing that I will say that I wish we could have executed better, because we had that pick and we had the ball at like the 50-yard line. There was like 15 seconds left. Yeah, like 10 yards, and it's raining. We saw against Kansas State over in Ireland when Iowa State played over there. Not Rocco, Kyle Conradi missed like a 30-some yard field goal in the rain. And I can't remember what play call we had, but it was not a very smart one. And we ended up kicking it from the 40-yard line and missing it. So I don't know. There's just a lot of strange things that seem to happen. Obviously, being an Iowa State fan, we're used to that every single year, even if we are good. So I don't know, but that's just my personal take on it. Yeah. All right, we're gonna try to talk about these next things pretty quick, and then we're gonna get into the Iowa State men's basketball team, which opens up, I guess, tonight for you guys watching this, because I'm recording this the day before. I did miss something with football, though. Matt Campbell, this is the last thing I'm going to say for football. Matt Campbell has repeatedly said this in every press conference that we've lost, and I agree to a point. He said the things that we're missing is attention to detail, which I love Matt Campbell. I think he's obviously by far the best coach at Iowa State ever. No one can really disagree with that. If you are disagreeing with that in some way, shape, or form, I just wonder why you're watching this, to be honest. But attention to detail is one of the things that I will disagree on him with, is because I think it's more so it comes to execution, and just like what we're actually doing. Because it seems like a lot of the time when we run certain plays, we just don't, like the 88-yard touchdown run from Jeff Sims, Arizona State. He's been running the ball the whole entire game, and now we just give up that huge touchdown run. So I did also miss one more thing. I greatly apologize for this. I was hoping to make this quick, but I guess I'm not. My other concerns with Rocco. Obviously, I talked about his health. But when I guess I didn't explain that in detail. Obviously, there was a few drop passes from the receivers. I know Chase Sowell had a couple, which is obviously on the receivers, but then like there was like at least 5 or 6 more that I remember, and there's probably even more than that, to be completely honest, that the throws were just like 10 yards over the receiver's head, or like 10 yards to the right, or 10 yards behind the guy. Like, so I think that's my biggest thing when I'm talking about Rocco's health, and not just like, oh, he's a bad quarterback now. Like, no, I still think he's a good quarterback. I just think there's something seriously wrong with his health, because you cannot go from the way that he was playing in the season before the Cincinnati game to now. That looks more like a health thing to me a little bit. And like even going back to last year too, like Rocco Becht, whether you like it or not, if you're an Iowa State fan or not, Rocco Becht was literally not the highest completion rated last year, but was one of the more consistently accurate quarterbacks in college football, not just the Big 12, but all of college football. And you can Google check and fact check me if you want, because that's legit. but he was consistently one of the most accurate quarterbacks in football. He did not really throw, balls that were super far off. And yesterday, really, I didn't really necessarily feel that way against BYU or Colorado, but yesterday, really seemed like, a lot of his throws were like 10 yards over the guy's head, or, 5 yards in front of him or 5 yards behind him. So that's what's giving me the thought that he's not 100% healthy. Maybe he hasn't been 100% healthy since he took that shot against Cincinnati. Again, I still think something needs to be looked at there. That would be very, very nice to get some. I would like to say confirmation, but honestly, I can't even say that because there's not any necessarily health concern on the staff that we've heard of. So, I don't know. I guess maybe the injury report, this Saturday against TCU, maybe they'll show something, but I don't know. Or do we have a bye week this week? We might. No, that's not till next week, I don't think. Anyways, we're going to move on from football for Iowa State at least. Also happening in the Big 12, I want to get to this first. Gameday is going to Lubbock, Texas, which I love. Obviously, this is a Big 12 podcast, so I'm going to support my other Big 12 teams as well. But they were at Utah, Cincinnati last week. Yesterday, I guess. Well, 2 days for you guys, but 2 weeks in a row going to Big 12 schools, which is huge. I absolutely love that. I absolutely love the respect to the Big 12 schools now. And it's a top 10 matchup in Lubbock with number 8 BYU and number 9 Texas Tech. If I could fly out to that game, I honestly probably would. But no, that is really cool that they're going to Lubbock. Again, back-to-back weeks, like I said, so that'll be huge for Texas Tech to host that. Also in the Big 12 this past Saturday, Utah demolished Cincinnati 45-14. I'm gonna say something real quick too. I'm 22, so I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to bet on the games. I'm gonna be honest. I did horrible on my bets this week. Okay, I did really, 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 really bad. Like I think I won one. I bet on like 9 different games, and I only won one of them. Only one, and the one that saved me was Vanderbilt and Texas, because I predicted at the time Vanderbilt would cover a 14-point spread, and Vanderbilt scored 21 points in like 8 minutes, and I ended up losing by 3. So thank you, Vanderbilt, for helping me save at least a little bit of money. Because I picked Cincinnati to cover this spread, which was 10.5. I thought it was going to be like a touchdown game. No, it was Brennan Sorsby threw his first interception since the Nebraska game at the beginning of the year. So yeah, but I did really, really bad, and we're going to get to another one too in a minute that I lost a huge bet on. But the next game we're going to talk about a little bit is Texas Tech handling Kansas State 43-21 with Baron Morton back. Obviously that's huge for the Red Raiders, especially coming into this week, especially with BYU having an off week this week, or this past week, I should say. And Baron looked good. He looked very solid. So I will be very interested to see this game against Texas Tech and BYU this coming weekend. I'll talk a little bit more about this coming week when we get closer to Saturday, but I'm really interested to see how the BYU offense plays like Bear Bachmeier. I'll be very interested to see how he plays against this Texas Tech defense, because they are a unit. I mean, the Texas Tech defense, absolutely unbelievable. I mean, they are very. I'm not a huge defensive guy. Like, I don't necessarily enjoy watching the defense specifically, but Texas Tech is a fun defense to watch. Like, they're a very, very fun defense to watch. So that'll be a very interesting game. Like I said, we're going to break down that a little bit more towards the end of the week. And then our last game really killed me when it comes to talking about bets, because I picked Houston to beat West Virginia. I'm just going to get this out of the way real quick. West Virginia upset Houston 45-35. I'm so mad at myself for doing this, but I'm also mad at West Virginia for scoring this many points, because I'm going to tell you guys something. I did a first time bet, which was the total amount of a team's points. And I bet that West Virginia, you're probably gonna laugh at me once I say this number. I bet West Virginia, I'm not gonna say how much, but I bet that West Virginia would score less than 18 points. And they have like 14 in the first like 10 minutes. So, and I thought, I'm going to be honest, I thought that was a lock, because Houston's defense has been really, really good this year. They've been outstanding. They've been among the best in college football. Again, that is another legitimate stat too, because I know probably not mine, but I do know there's a lot of like Big 12 haters out there that are like, oh, Houston's not that good, Texas Tech's not that good. No, these teams are legit. These teams are for real. Like on Tuesday when they do the college football playoff, you see 8 and 9, BYU and Texas Tech. We're going to have 2 teams in. I feel very confident that the Big 12 is going to have 2 Big 12 teams in. But, West Virginia, I don't even know what else to say at this point, because I was so sure that Houston would hold them to under 18 points. And West Virginia's offense has looked horrible this year. Like, they've looked amongst the worst in college football. But not Saturday, apparently. They saw that I bet on the game. They saw that I, went on to FanDuel and typed in, nope, I think West Virginia is going to go under 18 in this game. 45 points. So that was nice. Thank you very much, West Virginia. Well, that is enough for football. As an Iowa State fan, I'm very, very excited to announce to the fellow Iowa State fans watching this that basketball starts tonight. Well, tomorrow for me recording this. But I'm super, super excited. Not that I'm not going to watch our football team. I still am. But it is going to be nice to see one of our athletic programs win for the first time in a little bit. I'm not going to lie. It's been, I guess, 5 weeks now since, either a basketball or football team has won. I guess exhibition game we won last Sunday. But yeah, so Iowa State opens up the season at 7 o'clock against FDU, Farley Dickinson. Obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously because I don't want to jinx it, but I'm going to say there's a huge chance that Iowa State will win this game. And I don't think anyone should be worried. I mean, we just took care of business against Northwestern. Struggled against Creighton, which I'm going to get to a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go there first. And the main stat line from this that I want to look at specifically, the final score was, I think, 71-58. And the main stat line that I want to look at is 3-pointers, because it seems like last year and the year before, obviously Curtis Jones definitely helped out with the 3-point shooting. But it seems like Iowa State does definitely go on slumps with 3-point shooting, which is, it's fine, but you've got to find other ways to score, which we definitely do. But, I mean, you look at the stat line of this, 9 for 30 for Creighton. Iowa State went 0 for 14. That's a game changer for sure. And I'm really only talking about this game too. I know it was an exhibition. I know we were without Tamin Lipsey, but I'm really only saying this because guess what? We play Creighton in the regular season around Thanksgiving, sometime around there. And I think they were maybe out one of their starters as well. So it's going to be obviously a very, very different ball game too when it comes to the game over in Las Vegas. But I don't know. I don't want 3-pointers to be the reason that we lose games. I really don't. I don't think that's going to happen a ton this year with this basketball team. I think we're a very elite basketball team like we usually are, especially under TJ. But that's 9 points right there. Come on, I mean, it's simple as that. If you take away 9 of those points, it would be 62-58. Or if you at least tie them with 3-pointers, that would be 71-67. and you probably, I mean, it's an exhibition game, so you're not going to, it's not like a fight till the death kind of a game like it would be if it was March Madness, but still, it's just like, yeah, that would have been a little bit closer and a little bit more competitive. And I think at one point, there was one point where Creighton was up like 25-5 or something like that. And I was just like, okay, it's just exhibition, it's just preseason, it doesn't count. But I don't know. But it was nice, again, to see in the Northwestern game, Nate Heisey got, I think, 5 threes in that game, maybe even 6. So that was really nice to see from him. We obviously shot the ball way, way better in that game. Again, these are just preseason games, but, there's you don't want to, everything that you saw, you don't want to take away, but still, there are things that you do kind of want to look at with exhibition games. And it was nice to see that our shooting was a lot better against Northwestern. On that note, though, I'm going to talk about 2 negatives that I kind of have seen from our preseason games. First one is we have to get Milan out of slumps. Obviously, I said this in my last video about Iowa State basketball. It sounded like in the summer, for the summer games, Milan was averaging north of 18 points, which is amazing. We love to see that. But I think I said this in the last video too. I think the biggest thing when it comes to Milan is his consistency with shooting the ball, and I'm pretty sure if you're an Iowa State fan, any one of you can agree with that, because it definitely seems like there's games where he's just like off, like nothing goes down for him. And Creighton is a great example of that game. So we've got to figure out a way, hopefully before conference play, to figure out how to get Milan out of his slumps, because he's going to be huge in conference play. My next, this isn't a huge concern, but it's, again, just something that I noticed. And again, maybe this is just, preseason, vibes are, take some things away, take some things not away from the game that you just watched. That doesn't really matter. The bigs between Blake Buchanan, Eric Mulder, Dominicus Pleta, they look okay. Eric Mulder, obviously every time he gets the ball, he just dunks it, which is cool, but it's I think they look okay. I think we'll know more about them when it comes to the Player Errors tournament. Even with our couple of games, or even Mississippi State, which is, I believe, this coming Sunday, the 9th. That could be wrong. That might not be for another 2 weeks, actually. I don't know off the top of my head. But they look okay. I think we'll know more about them, like I said, in the Players Era tournament. But other than that, I thought everyone else looked pretty solid. Who looks good? Obviously, your main guys, Taman Lipsey, which I guess we haven't seen him. So can't necessarily speak there. But Milan, like I said, like we've just got to get him out of his slumps. I think for Milan, it's especially seeing that first shot go down. And I think there was an interview last year after one of the games where he literally said that, like, if his first shot goes down, or one of his first 2 or 3 goes down, his confidence rises like crazy. So I think that's huge for Milan. And again, that's just another thing where it's like, okay, well, let's drop a play to get him open, get him a wide open look, either from the 3-point line or something mid-range where he does his little step back fadeaway thing. And then Joshua Jefferson looks very solid again this year. But there's some players that I want to point out. Nate Heisey, obviously, like I just said, he knocked down 5 or 6 threes against Northwestern. And we were told when he came in last year that this is the kind of player that he was going to be. He was going to be a lights out 3-point shooter. And it looks like that may happen. He also looks really elite defensively too. He obviously was pretty solid defensively, but it looks like he's grown a lot in that category. So that's another good thing to see. Do I save the best for last? I'm going to save the best for last. Kylian Torre, I thought he looked solid. I don't have much to say about him there. But again, I think he's fine. I think, when Taman needs a little bit of a break, throw in Killian Torrey. I think he's going to, be a solid spot in there. The next one that I have is Jamarian Bateman. I have been so interested to watch Jamarian Bateman play, and to be completely honest, I don't really know why. There's one reason why, and it's because I remember last year I saw he scored I think it was either 62 or 72 points in a high school basketball game, which I know it's high school. It's a lot different from college, obviously. But I put that Jamarian and Killian will both come along, and I'm really excited to see Jamarian Bateman progress. And I think Jamarian Bateman, honestly, could be an elite Iowa State and very well-known player nationally by, honestly, the end of his sophomore year. He looks like he will be. He's huge. He's I'm not gonna say short, but I think he's 6'3" or something like that. But this guy, I mean, you look up a picture of this guy, which I know basketball players obviously they do this, but this Jamarian Bateman is jacked, man. He literally, I mean, he's jacked. He is a serious. I mean, he honestly could be like another Taman Lipsey, except just a little bit taller. Because I think he's taller than Taman. He looks taller than Taman. I'm pretty sure he's 6'3" or 6'4". I could be wrong, but he's a very, very strong dude. So I'm really excited to see how he progresses on this team. The last one, like I said, I'm going to save the best for last. Dominic Nelson. Holy cow. I mean, this guy looks really, really good. I loved watching him play against Northwestern. I'm going to love watching him play throughout the season. He was what is that conference called that Utah Valley's in? The WAC, I think. He was the player of the year in the WAC last year. He looks unbelievable. Truly. Dominic Nelson looks really, really good. He's really, really active on both sides of the floor. So I'm really interested to see what Dominic Nelson will do this year for Iowa State. Yeah, that is all for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully, you guys are going to be tuning in to the game against FDU tonight. And then we also play Grambling on Thursday. I will probably Friday be talking about Iowa State basketball. I believe Wednesday, hopefully, I'll post about the Big 12 games for football this weekend. Yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Big 12 Deep Dive, the podcast where we break down everything Big 12 football and basketball.